Okay.
Okay. All right. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. What's up, y'all? Alex Miller from the Eagle. We're here at College Station High School, joined by College Station head football coach Stoney Pryor. Coach, what's up?
It's great. It's time of year. You know, we got the freshmen out there starting practice. The older guys come out on Monday, and you know the excitement's in the air. It's time to transition from all that summer work into fall ball.
You know, here's the hard-hitting question I think all the listeners want to know. Do you keep the yellow polo and the hoodie in a special place that's like, you know, it's tucked away and folded nicely?
Absolutely. It's safely secured in my closet at home, away from any distractions or moths or anything like that.
Well, in all seriousness, you know, as you guys are getting closer to the start of the season, you know, what's kind of maybe your hope and just expectation for this Cougar team?
So obviously we have a hope and a desire and a goal of being back at AT&T Stadium, of coming out on top this year. We've been very blessed the last couple of years to have some pretty good runs. And so from a football point of view, we got a lot of talented players coming back. We've got some guys that have really worked hard. But as I was talking to the guys just a little bit ago, there's lots of schools where a lot of guys worked hard this summer and they want to win and they want to be successful. So we've got to figure out some ways to be successful in those especially difficult district games that we're going to have this year. But then kind of beyond that and bigger than that, this is just such a great step in the maturation of these young men as they go from boys when they enter our program, and pretty soon, you know, we'll have another group graduating and out into, I guess, the real world or the wilds of college and whatever life holds for them down the line. And so I think continuing to build those character foundational strengths, the things we call the Cougar Way, our character, commitment, sacrifice, and effort, but things that we're hoping pour into their lives to make them better husbands, better fathers, better neighbors, better employees, better bosses, and better people all around.
Yeah. You know, when you look at the last 2 seasons, you guys made it all the way to AT&T. You know, not being able to get that gold trophy, though. You know, has that motivated you guys throughout this offseason? Maybe try and hopefully, hey, third time's the charm, possibly?
Absolutely. Most definitely. And, you know, there's a little bit of risk, I think, of complacency in that, hey, we just show up and we'll end up at AT&T. And actually, when I said that to the seniors, they thought that was ridiculous, which I love. That they understand that it's got to be earned each week in and week out, and each season, and this is a different deal, and there's lots of teams that want to do that. But I think that having had a couple of long seasons back-to-back where our players understand the grind of starting in August and going till the end of December, of what a long season looks like, the physical and mental toll that takes on the player, and the things they have to overcome along the way, I think those are a lot of intangibles that really give our team an edge.
Yeah. You know, when you look at this team in particular, what gives you confidence that they have what it takes to possibly accomplish, you know, going that far once again?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. So from a football point of view, we have a number of solid returners back from last year's squad. Of course, we lost some key players as well, and that's typical in any team, but certainly in a high school team. We're going to have some heavy hitters graduate. But the thing that I think is really good is the way that our younger players have basically bought in, and the older players have brought them into the work, into the camaraderie and the culture and the esprit de corps, I guess, of what we've got, so that they're very unified in what we're trying to accomplish. I think the foundation has been laid for what kind of work we want to do, how we're going to go about off season and summer work, and our kids do buy into that. But then that extra added magic dust, I guess, of bringing everybody together so that there's a common goal, of a common objective of where we're trying to get in the season, that we can work in a unified sense to get there, and not in little pockets of potentially conflict or division, but even just driving us in different directions, that they're unified.
You know, some of your key returners, they kind of had to find their way last year as the season went on. One guy I wanted to ask was about Arrington Maiden, y'all's quarterback. Just how have you seen him grow in his game throughout this offseason leading up to the fall?
Tremendously. I mean, I think we saw him, and the public saw him more during the year, but even during that last football season, you saw a lot of growth and maturation in his play and his confidence. We saw it in his leadership as well, and that has probably accelerated in the off season, where he's very driven to do things well technically. He's very interested in understanding the schematics of what we're trying to do and then executing those things, but also in the way that he leads and the way that he works. We've seen great growth in that, and so that's obviously a very encouraging thing from your quarterback position, but also for him specifically to see how he's taken the reins as he moves into his senior year.
Aiden Martinez-Brown kind of became y'all's bell cow last year. Just where do you see him growing in his game now that he's kind of got a full off season under the system? I mean, he came in right about this time last year, huh?
He did. He came in right at the 11th hour, and as it turned out, was fantastic for us after Marquise's injury. That Aiden was able to step in, and he was pretty confused at the beginning, to be real honest, because he was new to our system. He hadn't grown up at our school, and he came at such a late time in the summer that it was fast and furious for him. I mean, he learned by drinking from a fire hose, and I think that you saw that with the progress that he made throughout the season. Early in the year, it was apparent that he was athletically gifted, that he can catch, that he can run, that he has vision on the field. But this is a game that requires a lot more than simply being athletically talented. You got to understand what's going on. And so as he grew in our system, and then when we hit the off season and we were able to watch him grow physically some more, get stronger and get quicker even, but as well the football time that we've had in the off season to be able to explain what's going on. So he's got a much fuller understanding of what we're trying to do. And I suppose it's not so much seat of the pants. So I think we'll see continued growth in him in the backfield, but he's a great route runner. Originally, when he first came in, we anticipated him being a slot before Marquise got hurt, and he does a great job running routes, finding ways to get open. He's really good with his hands and after the ball is thrown as well. And so I think that we'll see him moved around quite a bit on the field.
On the defensive side, what kind of player is Tony Hamilton for you guys? Because I think anybody who watches him, I mean, he kind of catches your eye.
Definitely catches your eye. And the thing that I think is unique and fun about Tony is he has a great spirit. He loves the game. He'll knock the snot out of you. I mean, he's a lot of times we think of guys that are having fun as like they're goofing around. He's not goofing around at all, but he loves it, and he's a great kid to be around. He's fun to converse with. He gets along well with the whole crew, whether it's the adults or the athletes. So he's got that spirit about him, but he's a great football player. He's got a great nose for the ball. We used him on both sides of the ball last year, and I think we'll continue to do that because he runs well with the ball, and I don't trust a lot of people with the ball under their arm. But I definitely trust Tony, and he's a hard-hitting player. And then, of course, on the defensive side, he's a great player, but he's turning more and more into a great leader. We had a number of seniors in our back end of our defensive group last year that sort of ran things, and Tony has really stepped into the role to be a leader in that capacity, which is huge because he's good and he's talented, but he's got a lot that he can share and motivate with others.
A guy that y'all added in your secondary by transfer was Braylon Wortham. Just how big of an addition is he to y'all's secondary?
Yeah, he's a really talented player, and he's gonna do good things. So we're thrilled that he's here at College Station. We got some glimpses of that during 7-on-7, and of course I had seen some highlights, but I hadn't seen him play in person because we're usually busy when he was playing in person until 7-on-7, and he's a playmaker. He has really picked up things that we're doing on both sides of the ball very well. I'd expect him to get some snaps on both sides of the ball. and just coming from where he came from and what a impact player he's been in all phases of the game, he's a great addition.
You know, where do you kind of see maybe group-wise the strength of this team being possibly?
You know, just on paper, when we start out, we have a lot of offensive skill returning. You know, we had a couple guys graduate in those roles, but really we have guys with varsity experience and in many cases lots of varsity experience at each of those offensive skill positions. We have a couple of offensive linemen returning that'll be solid, and our younger offensive linemen have been really working hard to step into that role, but that's a little bit more untested. On the defensive side of things, our defensive front is very solid. We've got a great returning group there that has lots of experience, and they're very talented players. And then we lost a little bit more at the linebacker and secondary level, but we've got some returners there. So I think our two big strengths would be defensive line and offensive skill.
Gotcha. You know, when you kind of look at the schedule, I mean, you guys are going all the way back up to Dallas again to start the season. You know, what do you hope to see in the non-district games, knowing that you guys are going to have a couple of challenging opponents?
Sure. So my goal in everything we do, whether it's a game, whether it's a non-district game or a playoff game or the state championship game, and hopefully also transferring into the rest of the phases of their lives, I have a three-pronged attack. I want to win, I want to get better, and I want to do it with class. And those things all are important, whatever it is that I'm doing. If I'm going out to play a game, I want to win the game. I want to get better in the process of doing it. Partly because I want to be better next week, but also just that's the growth mindset that I want, and I always want to do it with class. So in those playoff games, obviously the winning is really important. We don't want to do it at the expense of anything else, but the winning does keep the season going another week in the playoffs. Not so much in the non-district. Obviously, we'd like to win all of our non-district games, but really what we need to see is great growth. Back in 2017 when we won state, we started out with Westlake, and it was a loss for us, and they were a really good team on a really hot Saturday afternoon. But competing against Westlake, who was outstanding and had a great season that year themselves, exposed some things we needed to work on, but it also gave us some confidence that, hey, we've got a pretty good group here. And I think that's also something that's valuable in a non-district, to realize that we're talented, we can get some stuff done, but we haven't yet arrived. We've got work to do, and hopefully that comes with a 3-0 record after the non-district. But it could be an 0-3 record, and if we see the growth that we need to propel us into the much more important district games, and then the consequential playoff games, then that's the important thing.
When you look at the district, I mean, last year, there were a lot of new teams that y'all probably didn't know too much about. What did you learn about this district and what you might expect from it going into this year?
So that's another great thing we just talked about with our seniors is when there's a natural direction that you might want to head after we go to the state championship 2 years in a row, that we're going to be district champs this year. And I hope that we're district champs this year, but we're fools if we just think that's going to happen. And so I had them think back through our district play last year, and there were some real challenging games that could have easily gone the other way, that potentially if a couple of them go the other way, we may not even be in the playoffs. And so I think that, and the guys definitely took that in stride and understand that. So I think that one thing we learned is our district is pretty tough. And if you don't show up to play, you're going to lose. So I think that's a great mindset for any athlete, is to realize you better show up and compete, and you have a chance to sharpen your tools in the process of doing that. But being a different group of teams that we don't typically play, we played Georgetown some, we played Consol, of course, some, but mostly we haven't played these teams very many times. And I think that's kind of neat, because that also takes you into a playoff mentality. Like, most likely the teams you're going to play in the playoffs, you haven't played a lot because they're geographically somewhere else across the state. So preparing for those sharpens you physically and mentally. But it's going to be a tough district.
Well, I'll leave you with this, Coach. as you guys enter the season, what are going to be some keys for you guys to match some of those goals?
So I think we need to see some younger players that are filling these roles that have opened up. I think we need to see them do well. I think the offensive line is really a crucial part of any team and frequently an overlooked part. But it doesn't matter that we have a lot of returning skill if we can't create holes and keep them off the quarterback. So I think that's a key part. I think the unity and the camaraderie through a season is always important. We know that there's going to be challenges. We know that things are going to go awry at some point. We don't know what it's going to be, but it could be an injury. It could be some conflict. I don't know what it'll be, but keeping the team unified with the same goal, the same end result, to get through those conflicts together, those challenges together, I think is a key thing. And then performing when it's time to perform. I told the seniors, you can't float through what's going on. You need to seize it. You need to take hold of it. You need to own it, whether it's a rep in practice or a rep in a game. Every opportunity, objectively and consciously seize it and be awesome in that moment.
Well, hey, that's Stoney Pryor. He's the head coach of the College Station Cougars. Coach, thanks so much for giving us a little insight into y'all's season.
Great talking to you, Alex.
All right. Be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our preseason coverage on high school football here in the Brazos Valley. All right.
Boom.
There we go.